the question of what the U.S. should do now, what it can do. The President talked about that today.
We're not going to allow ourselves to be dragged back into a situation in which, while we're there, we're keeping a lid on things, and after enormous sacrifices by us, as soon as we're not there, suddenly people end up acting in ways that are not conducive to the long-term stability and prosperity of the country.
So those are the stakes. What we have come to know as Iraq could fall. It appears Iraq is headed for partitioning, if indeed that hasn't happened already. We want to begin our coverage here tonight with our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, back in Iraq tonight after living there for much of the past decade. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. Today the President talked about days to consider options, but many Iraqis aren't sure they have days before this fight reaches Baghdad.
Militants from the al-Qaeda offshoot ISIS are now just 40 miles from Baghdad, and they're growing in number, joining forces with other Sunnis who oppose the U.S.-backed Shiite government, and former military officials from Saddam Hussein's regime looking for any chance to get back into power. ISIS also now has the money to buy allies. It stole $450 million from the Mosul Central Bank, the governor told NBC News today, making it the richest terrorist group in the world. And after robbing Mosul, today ISIS imposed Islamic Sharia law there, ordering women to wear veils or stay at home, outlawing freedom of religion, and barring all other armed groups from entering the city. And the men the United States trained to fight the ISIS assault, they're still surrendering. Some told us they were ordered to by their commanders. Without the Army's protection, hundreds of thousands of civilians are leaving Mosul.
Volunteers and aid workers are building tents as fast as they can. There has been a massive wave of people fleeing their homes. The fear here is that this is just the beginning.
The Musawi family, all 12 of them, walked 20 miles to escape Mosul. Now at a refugee camp, a mother of 5 called Iraqi troops cowards, says she'd be better at fighting than them. But today, this conflict may have changed. Today, the Shiite majority awoke. In the holy city of Karbala, where Shia Islam was forged in battle 13 centuries ago, volunteers signed up for a new war. Shiite clerics called the faithful to arms and promised those who died fighting ISIS a place in paradise. The war is closing in on Baghdad, where Al Jazeera English's Omar Al-Saleh is tonight.
The people are worried. When you speak to them, you sense there is fear that perhaps the unknown would come.
Tension in the capital, the U.S. freed from a dictator, but which fears it is once again in the crosshairs.
And Brian, as we talked about last night, there are still several thousand American contractors and U.S. diplomats in this country, many of them at the embassy in Baghdad. The State Department won't say if extra security procedures have been put in place, but I can tell you on some of the streets not very far from the embassy, the locals are barricading their homes. Brian?
Richard Engel in Erbil in the north of Iraq for us tonight. Richard, thanks.